Now to the story of police arresting an autistic teenager for an alleged homophobic comment. Let's just take a look at how events unfolded. A warning that this is actually quite an upsetting clip and it might be distressing for some of you.
With your clenching your fist, go away from my teenage daughter.
What is up with you?
Right, there is something wrong with you, mate. She didn't aim it at the police officer.
It's not homophobic remarks at my colleague.
It's not a homophobic remark. She said, I think she's a lesbian like Nana.
If you want to bully people, you'll just get one of them badges there. That's what you do.
Yeah, exactly.
Where'd it go? Where's this? Does it go to right under there?
She's autistic. She don't like people touching her. She will have a meltdown. She won't come out. She's got autism. I'm Lisa.
Talk to her so she can come out.
Absolutely horrible, isn't it? The 16-year-old girl has been released from bail, but West Yorkshire's Police's Professional Standards Directorate is still looking into the incident after receiving a complaint. To discuss this, frankly, really disturbing story, I'm joined by former London police officer and Director of Law and Order Foundation, Norman Brennan. Norman, thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. I'm unsure where to begin with this. I mean, you've seen the footage. What do you make of what happened?
Well, look, let's put some context in this, Dawn. Police officers are called to incidents every day of the week. When they deal with teenagers, those with some sort of disability or the elderly, in general, they're quite sensitive. We've seen a short clip there, and many clips I see on social media sometimes are conveniently clipped to give a narrative of something that perhaps others are unaware of. If we see an entire clip, we may have found out why the police actually attended this address in the first place, what sort of opposition they face, whether it is threatening behaviour, abusive behaviour. What we see is a clip, and yes, the context of it is not pleasant. But I also saw, Dawn, that there was another criticism on the pylon on social media where they criticised that 7 officers attended this address. What they may not know is that if the officer felt threatened, we haven't seen that, but it may be in another part of the video, they would have touched their red button, which means that all available officers within the vicinity would turn up to back that officer up to ensure that he or she was okay. That was probably why there were 7 officers. You wouldn't have 7 officers attending the juvenile's house for that sort of crime.
So, I mean, obviously, look, you know, all of us respect sort of like the men and the women on the beat who are doing this job. It's an incredibly hard job, and you understand that it is a dangerous job, and people, you know, as you said, they might have pressed their red button. But surely, Norman, I mean, it's, you know, the fact that the police, the force in question are investigating what happened. The girl has been released with no charges whatsoever, although she was held in custody for 20 hours and questioned. Surely the fact that the force are investigating means that maybe the context is what we are seeing.
Well, look, all of us within policing, certainly when I was in policing, is probably the only job where every single officer is a manager. Every officer has to substantiate the behaviour or actions that they've taken. And there's many of us that have attended a scene or an incident where we could have dealt with it better. We could have spoken to somebody better. We may not have needed to use the force that we needed. And if that's the case, there'll be words of advice, there'll be a complaint. And if it's a serious complaint, it'll be forwarded to the Crown Prosecution Service or the Office of Independent Police Conduct. What I've seen, Dawn, and what you've seen is a clip. And yes, it's distressing. If we saw a bigger clip, pretty much like a court, and that's why we have courts, is that you'll hear what the police did and why they did it, how they were received, and if they could have dealt with it better. What I have seen on social media is demands for the Chief Constable to resign, the officer to be suspended. That's not down to you or me. What we've seen is an incident that doesn't look pleasant, that looks as though it could have been handled better, but have we seen the true context? And we can't have people being destroyed on social media. And a caveat to all of this, what I'm talking about, is I'm not here to defend bad policing. Goodness me, I've been on your programme and many others condemning some police behaviour. What I will say is this, is that I spoke to a very senior Police Federation official this week, and we discussed an officer was absolutely slated on social media, and he apparently had committed an assault. for which I understand he was convicted for. So he would face a penalty for that. But the social media, the lynch mob, put him in such a bad place, he committed suicide. So we've got to be careful with context. We've got to be careful how we use our pile-ons. We shouldn't really pile on people. And where police officers have made a mistake, and if this young officer has made a mistake, it's only right and proper that that's put before the right authority, where they see independently what she has done, and either words of advice are given, or maybe some disciplinary action will be taken. Just
for people that aren't aware of the story, what we are aware of at the moment, as you said, we don't know the full context, and that's precisely what West Yorkshire Police have said as well. The girl was arrested after telling an officer, "You look like my lesbian nana," it's you know, and this was supposedly a homophobic public order offence, even though it was said in the girl's home. Is it possible to commit a public order offence in your own home?
No, not really. You commit a public order offence normally out on the street. It's threatening, abusive or violent behaviour towards someone else, where it causes fear to other members of the public. The sad reality is that not all police officers know their full powers all of the time.
Right.
We have lost 22,000 police officers over the last 12, 13 years. We've been obsessed of recruiting as many as we possibly can. And I believe that there are a number of people that we've recruited, A, that are not up to standard, B, probably haven't got a good grasp of the law. And not only that, since I was in policing, about homophobia, you know, all these different phobias that are put upon the police, that they must crack down on this, they must crack down on that. And the thing is, police officers sometimes perhaps will arrest someone or threaten to arrest someone, whereas 20, 30 years ago, I'd have given them words of advice and told them to get on their way. But when they get involved in a situation where they may not have the power, like in this case, they may not have had the power, it accelerates to such a degree, it hits social media, and suddenly the anti-police mob basically make the police look as though they're all dreadful and crap and don't care. That's far from the truth. The majority do. Some make mistakes. I made mistakes when I was a police officer. I learned from them and I become a better person for it. Sometimes we need to just step back a bit and let the right authorities deal with it. The young girl is no longer on bail, and no doubt an officer will attend to make sure that she's okay, kept up to scratch with what's going on. And I think it's a learning curve for everybody. But one thing that we must learn, Dawn, is that we can't have these piles-ons on social media and push people to the point of suicide. That's not what social media is all about. We allow independent police investigations and our courts to deal with wrongdoings by police officers.
No, of course, absolutely. That's Norman Brennan there. Thank you very much for joining us this afternoon, Norman. As I said, a disturbing story that hopefully will have an outcome. Now, we have to read what the West Yorkshire Police have said as a statement. We recognise the significant level of public concern that this incident has generated, and we have moved swiftly to fully review the evidence in the criminal investigation, which has led to the decision to take no further action. Without preempting the outcome of the ongoing review, the circumstances by our professional standards directorate, we would like to reassure people that we will take on board any lessons to be learned from this incident. We do appreciate the understandable sensitivities around incidents involving young people and neurodiversity, and we are genuinely committed to developing how we respond to these often very challenging situations.